Hi, my name is John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we're the hosts of The Pint,
a pop culture podcast.
Lloyd, if you had to tell any of the people out there that might be listening to The Pint for the first time about anything unsavory or disconcerting we might do on the show, what would you warn them about?
Well, sometimes we drop spoilers, and sometimes we swear like motherfucking sailors.
Fuck yeah, we do. You heard it from him. You've been warned.
Listen in.
Because you came back and made some changes.
So now you're gonna fuck with time. You're as bad as me.
Wrong. I'm setting it right.
2023, motherfuckers. Welcome to a brand new year. Year 6.
Happy New Year. Woo!
Right. Of The Pint. My name's John.
And my name is Lloyd.
And we are back again with you in another year. We're going to have a good year this year. We're going to...
Oh, yeah, we are.
What do people call that when they make shit happen in their brains? Manifest. We're going to manifest
it, yeah.
I'm manifesting a good 2023 for us personally and for everybody out there and for The Pint. But most people, when they roll into a new year, roll into January.
Oh,
and here,
no,
we don't do that.
Not here at The Pint.
Not
we don't
this
have
year.
January.
No. What do we got this year, Manster?
This year, we've got goddamn Dammeuary.
Dammeuary. That's right. I was at work one day, very bored. I work a lot of hours and I can't fill them all with work. And I think I was thinking of the podcast, and I don't know how, but the word Dammeuary hit my head, and I went,
yeah,
well, that's a theme month. And then I went online because I was like, this has to have been another podcast or somebody else used it, and I could not find it, so we're taking it. So if someone,
it's ours now, bitch.
It's ours now. So if someone
gotta
out
pay
there,
us to use it.
Exactly. If one of the listeners out there comes to me and says, John, this other show I know of did it like 5 years, I don't give a fuck. I couldn't find it. Dammeuary is officially a Pint thing, and maybe even next year. So,
and fair warning, we're going to follow it up later in the year.
Yes.
Secret. You will forget about it by the time it happens.
Yes, it's going to be let's just say it's going to be in September, and we have a whole new theme month that Lloyd came up with the name for. So super excited for September of this year. Or as we're going to call it, blank Ember. So right now, we are here for Dammeuary, 4 weeks of Jean-Claude Van Damme films. You all know him. You love him. I put this up when I had the idea to the Pint Insiders on Patreon and said, would you want to, hear 4 weeks of Van Damme episodes? And it was resounding. Everybody voted yes.
Everyone.
A couple, I can't remember if it was Laura. I think it might have been Laura, our good friend Laura. Maybe put, why wouldn't we want to hear 4 weeks of Van Damme? So I guess it's a good thing. So we're starting this week with 1994's Timecop. Now, real quick, if you don't know a lot about the guy, the muscles from Brussels, okay, I have a couple of notes. You got to
teach me, because I'm not a big Van Damme fan.
All right, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about him.
Yeah.
So we all know him as Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's from Belgium. Real name is Jean-Claude, but wait, it's Jean-Claude Camille Francois Van Varenberg. That's a fucking mouthful.
I love that name.
So instead of
Francois,
instead of JCVD, it would be JCCFVV if you were to go by his given name. So at the age of 10, he started to practice Shotokan karate and also kickboxing, Muay Thai, and Taekwondo. As the years came by, he started to collect all of that knowledge and work in all of those fields of martial arts. From 1976 to 1982, he was a competitive karate fighter. And in 1979, he was part of the Team Belgium, which won the European Karate Championships. And then from there, he eventually stopped competing in martial arts and moved to America to try to start a movie career.
Yep.
He ended up kind of doing some stunt work, and
I guess he failed at that.
Oh, hey, married 5 times, I think, too. 5 times.
Holy shit.
So he doesn't have the best track record with that. He comes to America. He starts doing movies. He ends up in No Retreat, No Surrender. The guys at Canon, Golem and Globulus, or whatever their names are, Golem, Globus, those guys loved him. He was the original. We talked about this in the Predator episode. He was the original guy in the old Predator suit. Yeah. And got himself fired and replaced by Kevin Peter Hall. So
that's too small. Is that what it was?
He was small and he bitched a lot. He was not a star.
Like
he bitched a lot and they got tired of him. They got very tired of him. Yeah. So that's
he fucking developed those luscious locks of hair. And how could you not be a star with that?
Yeah, and so you're saying, Manster, you're kind of a Van Damme. I guess you're not that into him, or you weren't.
Let's say this. I mean, you might be surprised to hear this, but I don't know that I've ever watched a movie because he was in it.
Wow.
I may have incidentally watched one of his movies before, but that's it.
Now, let me ask.
This is the first time I've ever seen Timecop.
I know in the late 80s and 90s when Van Damme was in his like heaviest popularity in Hollywood films, you were like in your third year of medical school at that point. So I understand why you were busy, but were you like a Steven Seagal guy, or were you just not into that type of
I guess film? I wasn't. I know I was not a Steven Seagal guy, thank God.
Okay.
Yeah, I like them. I don't find a problem with them, but I never really was the kind of guy that sought out, that kind of film.
All right, well, let's talk about this one. Let's talk about Timecop. Timecop comes out on September 16th of 1994. It was filmed between September and December of 1993. Filmed in and around Santa Ana, California, Pittsburgh, PA, and mostly in British Columbia, Canada. Directed by Peter Hyams. Peter Hyams has made several films. He made another film with Van Damme that we're not going to be talking about the year after this called Sudden Death, which was essentially Die Hard at the Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay.
Peter Hyams made 2010, the year we made contact, and he also made a film we did here last year on Forgotten February with the Mikes, Outland, which is a great Sean Connery space western. Now, the writing of this is a comic book movie, right? So
it sure is, yeah.
The former Pint Comics is finally getting around to some comic material here.
Go
figure. So Mike Richardson, who's the founder of Dark Horse Comics, if you don't know Dark Horse Comics, those are the guys that publish Hellboy. They were a longtime publisher of Conan the Barbarian.
Yep.
The Umbrella Academy.
Star Wars, they did.
Star Wars for quite a while. So Mike Richardson wrote the story for the comic, which was a 3-part anthology in the original Dark Horse comics. So when Dark Horse first started coming out, they had an anthology series, and there was a 3-part anthology book. Mike Richardson wrote along with Mark Verheiden, who you might know. He was the executive producer and writer on the canceled before it came out Swamp Thing television show. He was a senior producer and writer on Smallville hit show. He was very involved in the Battlestar Galactica reboot from the early 2000s. So these two guys wrote this comic together, this 3-part story. It was called Timecop, A Man Out of Time. And Ron Randall was the artist on the comic series. He did a lot of stuff for DC, Sergeant Rock, Justice League Europe, Justice League International. So it gets optioned.
Have you ever read that?
I have not. No.
Did you read about it, like the differences between the stories?
I read a minor amount of stuff. It seemed fairly straight up. Did you get into that or no?
I did. I mean, I wrote some notes on it. Nothing too in depth or anything, but yeah, it's a little bit different. At the end, it was all about a political leader a guy who came back, like somebody that was saved due to his actions, came back and ended up being a political leader who helped end apartheid.
Oh, which
had no bearing on this story.
This certainly did not happen in this movie at all. All right, so Manster, we talked about the creation and where it was made and who wrote it. Let's talk about the cast of Timecop.
Bring me everyone.
What do you mean, everyone?
Everyone! We got Jean-Claude Van Damme as Agent Max Walker. He of the Time Enforcement Commission.
Yes.
The TEC, they like to call it. Yeah. What can you say about this guy, man? He could do a split in midair and land on like a 2 shelves or something, washing machine, whatever.
In every movie, Van Damme does a split, it seems like. And then there's also, and I don't think, maybe unless I missed it in this one, he normally does like a giant, like in the air spin kick. And
Okay.
I don't know if he did it in this one. Like, I don't think, because this wasn't the type of movie where he had like a equal martial arts like nemesis, right?
Counterpart. Yeah, no, nothing like that.
His nemesis was fucking Ron Silver in this movie. who
I like to call him Joel Silver.
you did. You sent me a text the other day.
Wrong Silver.
You said the whole ending with Joel Silver was weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, Joel Silver. I'm like, do you mean Ron Silver?
Yeah,
like wrong.
What are
Silver.
those? One of those Silvers. Hi-ho Silver.
You know, that's a good name for rest in peace, by the way, Ron Silver. But that's a good name for him now is Wrong Silver.
Oh, right. Wrong Silver.
It actually fits in it. W and G at the end of and the beginning of his name. He's Wrong Silver.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Then we have Mia Sara as Melissa Walker, his wife. You might remember her from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. She was the girlfriend Sloane. Princess Lily in Legend. Yep. She's a cute girl.
She's very cute. Can I read off? I don't always quote print quotes out for these movies, but it's a Van Damme film. And obviously one of the joys of a Van Damme film, and this is not making fun of a gentleman from another country, is kind of his stilted dialogue.
Yeah.
Because he's ESL, right? He's English.
They even sort of make fun of that in the movie.
I have that quote. So at one point, there is a quote where Walker is talking to his wife, and he says, "He must have read my mind." And she says to him, "The way you speak English, he'd have to." This is his fucking wife. But here's the line I like better is early in the movie, they have a scene where he's standing behind her, and they have this like exchange where it's like she knows it's him, but she doesn't see him. And he says to her, "There's never enough time." And she says, "Time for what?" And then his great line is, "To satisfy a woman."
I know.
And then she says, "Then you never want to miss an opportunity."
Yeah, it was a weird exchange, but I have some comments on that once we get into the whole time jumping type of situation.
Perfect. Who else do we have in this one?
Then we have Wrong Silver as Senator Aaron McComb. Basically, he's the bad guy. He's from The Entity, Blue Steel, Ali, a whole bunch of stuff.
Blue Steel is a good movie if you've never seen it. It's Catherine Bigelow who made Zero Dark 30 and all that stuff. It's Jamie Lee Curtis as a cop. And Ron Silver is like this weirdo that becomes obsessed with her, and he's a bad guy in that as well. And I think it was a couple years before this. I would almost say I bet it's what got him this role, because he played a real creep in both movies, just in kind of different ways. Yeah,
he always reminds me of someone else. I always think he's someone else, not Joel Silver.
Not Joel Silver. Rob Silver.
I can't remember who it is. Is it maybe Andy Garcia? There's just some other actor that
Andy Garcia
confused them in my head.
Yeah, it's not Andy Garcia. Andy Garcia is a pretty good looking guy. Ron Silver isn't a bad looking guy, but he's not. Ron Silver is one of those kind of like skinny guys with a fat head, and his beard, there's no definition to his face. His beard just kind of runs down into his neck, and it just all melts together.
Isn't there some line in the movie where someone calls him a handsome devil though?
He does, right? He calls himself, right?
Was it himself?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Yeah. Then we have Bruce McGill as Commander Eugene Matuzak. This is Max's boss. Love this guy.
Yeah.
He's always fun when he's in a movie. He's in The Insider, Ali as well. My cousin Vinny was the sheriff.
Well, the one that I always go back to with him that you just never realize it's him because he was in his 20s is he's Daniel D-Day Simpson in Animal House. He's in that. Yep. But because he was like younger and thinner, I think he had a mustache, and he looks different. You always forget it's him. But yeah, Daniel D-Day Simpson has no grade point average.
0.0. Then we have Gloria Rubin as Agent Sarah Fielding, Max's partner momentarily. She's in a lot of stuff. I recognize her, but I never know where she's from.
I agree with that. I know who Gloria Rubin is, but I couldn't pick out anything she's ever been in. And in 2 months, I won't remember she was in this either.
Right, exactly. But she was Jeannie Boulet in ER. She did a pretty big stint in ER. That's for Larry. She was in Nick of Time with Johnny Depp. Mr. Robot. Yeah. She's in Mr. Robot. I don't know. I think first season. But that was a good show. I don't know if you ever watched that, but
I didn't. It was one of those shows.
I love season 1, and then
yeah, it was super hyped up, and I just thought, I don't know, I don't want to get involved in something else right now.
Yeah, exactly. And Homicide: Life on the Street, anytime that shows up, I have to shout out because that is my favorite cop show.
It's a great show. It's a great show.
Then we have Scott Bellis as Ricky, the techie guy.
Oh, right.
In the little VR sex thing. He was in Smallville, Dead Zone. He was the alien abductee Max Fennig in the X-Files.
Okay.
If you recall any of that stuff.
I don't remember that. I do want to call him out for the scene where, he's the tech guy for the what is it? TEC? TCE?
TEC.
TEC. And he's like, the long-haired hippie guy. And the first scene you meet him in, he's having virtual reality sex on the company dime.
Yeah.
Like during work hours, he's having like VR sex. And every line, like, so if you think about like in this movie, at the very least, you think about like Predator or the great Schwarzenegger movies where they wrote these lines for Schwarzenegger, like knock, knock. And, his little quips, like, oh my, don't bother my friend. He's dead tired. It all works for Schwarzenegger, even though there's a level of corniness to it.
Yeah.
In this movie in particular, 90% of the things that Van Damme as Max Walker say sound like dad jokes, like terrible dad jokes. So in the scene where he's having the virtual reality sex, he gets caught by his boss, Matuzak. And here's the quote. He says, damn it, Ricky, I catch you fucking this machine again, I'll break your neck. And then Ricky says, sorry, Chief. And then Walker chimes in and says, looks like safe sex to me.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, just shut the fuck up. That was
so bad. So bad. It just didn't go over at all.
No, didn't work.
Yeah, it would. I don't even know if that line would have worked for Arnold.
No, it wouldn't have. That's what I'm saying.
It's such a bad line.
It just seems like they had the worst, like the worst dad joke shit in this movie.
Yep. Who's worse, this guy as Ricky or the techie guy from Minority Report?
Oh, the techie guy in Minority Report, because at least Ricky just seems to be jerking off on futuristic
Pornhub. It's virtual, not actual.
Yeah. And the guy in Minority Report seems like he's creeping on like a girl that lives in a pool.
I know.
Who doesn't speak.
Putting his like face just so close to hers.
Yeah,
creepy. So creepy. Then we have Jason Schombing as Agent Lyle Atwood. Small little part, but he's the former, I guess, partner of Max at one point. They allude to. He takes a dive out a window. He was in the A-Team movie. He was in Watchmen. He was on the SWAT team in Watchmen.
Okay,
but a lot of little roles here and there. And I'll do one more. Scott Lawrence as George Spoda, the presidential aide / leader of the TEC in the future, I guess. This guy always reminds me of the guy from the Allstate commercials, the president from 24.
Oh yeah, Dennis Haysbert. Yeah. I
just
see
like
that,
like a sort of shrunken down version of that guy.
Yeah, he's like a deflated Dennis Haysbert. Yeah.
He was in JAG, The Social Network, Fear the Walking Dead. I guess I never saw that, and a lot of voice work as Darth Vader.
Oh, interesting.
Yep.
All right.
A lot of voice work.
All right. So as Timecop opens up, we're in the past, we're Civil War era, and we have these Confederate soldiers, and they're carrying they've got a horse-drawn carriage with something in it, and across the street from them, or across their path, there's a cowboy-looking gentleman.
Yeah,
standing there
with a missing tooth in front.
With a missing tooth, the whole 9 yards, and they essentially get into kind of a confrontation where he tells them, "I know that you're carrying Confederate gold
bullion
to General Custer. I want it. You're going to give it to me." And these Confederate soldiers was like, "Fuck you!" And just as they're about to draw it out on him, he pulls 2 submachine guns out with laser sights and blows everybody away. Right? Blows everybody away.
Amazingly, not the horses. So
no, he doesn't.
Very grateful for that.
I thought the same thing. I don't want to see a horse get killed in this movie.
Yeah.
But like, how the fuck did he miss those horses? He sprayed 2 submachine guns,
so many,
like akimbo over each other, and he just managed to kill all the fucking the Confederates, and the horses are all like, "Okay, I'm just gonna run."
They probably give him a ride back.
They're like, "Dude, you didn't kill us. Thank you." Most people would have killed the horses.
That whole gold thing presents another whole time travel problem if you think about it too much. But anyway.
Yeah. Well, so then we go into the next scene, which is now in 1994.
94. Yep.
When this movie takes place, and it's in Washington D.C., and it's deflated Dennis Haysbert, and he comes into this special congressional little unit and says, we're putting together this I guess committee because time travel's real, right? And Wrong Silver is his character. McComb is in this unit of senators.
He's like a very young senator at this point.
Right. He's like a junior senator.
Yeah.
And the guy says, look, we know time travel's real. These gold bullion cubes from 1863 showed up. In our time, we know it's not right. Time travel's dangerous.
They were used to purchase something. I don't remember.
I don't remember what he said. I don't remember what he said.
They were, something was, I don't know. There was some transaction and those gold pieces were used with it. That's how they found out.
And this scene is essentially just a giant exposition dump because they explain to you the rules of time travel.
Yeah, the whole rules.
What's the main rule, Lloyd, of how you can go?
The main rule of how you can go is you can only go back in time. You can't go forward in time because the future has not happened yet.
Right. And then what is the risk, as we know in everything of time travel, if you go in the past, of doing what and what happens?
Well, there is a risk of, there's two risks, really, I guess. The one is you can't do any kind of major, you can't kill somebody major.
Right.
You know, you can't, he uses an example, you can't kill Hitler because you don't know how that's going to change time. You know, you may have totally ruined things and made everything worse.
Right.
And the other thing is, with your own self, you can't, they make such a big ordeal of this. You can't occupy the same space at the same time.
The same matter cannot occupy the same matter.
And apparently that means you can't like touch fingertips with your own self.
No. Bad things happen. Bad CGI happens as well.
Yeah. So those are the major rules, although I'd really call that into question too. But
well, here's a question I have for you, and I know this gets into the body of the movie, but this is the Pint. You know how we do this. When we do finally get to seeing the TEC in action, right? The actual mechanics of time travel confuse the fuck out of me in this.
Oh, so it's not just me. All right.
So, and I've seen this movie before. So, the way you go back in time is you get into this rocket-propelled sled that's on a track.
It's basically the Aerosmith rock and roller coaster.
Correct. You get on fucking Space Mountain. They blast you across this track, which is probably only like 3/4 of a football field long. It's not that long.
Right.
And right before you kind of hit this stop, this wall, I will say I do like the effect of how you go in and come out of time with that like bubble that kind of like stretches.
Yeah, the ripple effect at the return.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So they go through in this fucking car, right? Boom. But then, Lloyd, what happens when you arrive at your destination? What is missing all of a sudden?
All right, so that's so fucking random. I have no idea. I couldn't figure out what the rules of arrival were because you could literally arrive anywhere. You could walk through the wall of where you actually want to go, or you could land in a lake, or you could land right in front of a semi truck in the middle of a highway.
Right.
I don't get it.
You're right on all that, but like, where did the cart go? The sled, it's gone.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not like Back to the Future. Like it goes with you. It disappears. And
so in the movie, at one point, the Ron Silver character has a return box on him, and they show it, and essentially he has this return box. He's from the future and he's in the past. There's a whole action sequence of them trying to get the return box away from him because they don't explain it, but you're assuming you hit the button on the return box and that gets you back to your time, right? Later in the movie, there's a scene where Van Damme leaves the past and comes back to the future. And when he arrives in the future, he comes back on the fucking sled again.
Yeah, he arrives on the sled.
I can't.
Is that the only time we see them arrive in the back?
Yes, it's the only time we see them arrive back is when he.
This was a major problem I had watching it because I kept thinking the exact same thing.
No, because don't they show him come back with the guy that was hiding in the 20s? He catches him, and I think they show him just up here.
How did they show him? I don't remember how they showed him.
It wasn't in the cart. It was not in the cart. This fucking sled cart thing is so goddamn confusing.
Yeah. Another thing with the sled cart, I guess we'll talk about the Volmers.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So they had the scene where, the girl, the Miss Fielding goes with him. She's clearly afraid to do this little time travel, 88 miles an hour towards the brick wall. And she says, whatever happened to the Volmers? And he's like, well, see those 2 red spots on the wall? That's the Volmers. However, I don't know. I don't fucking get it. I would think they go flying out of it. That makes no sense.
Well, I guess I can actually see.
Does it
that,
crash through the wall? Like, would those red spots be there? No.
Well, the red spots would be there if they crashed through it and like got flattened onto that thing. The question I had,
then the wall would be broken. They wouldn't patch up the wall and put the fucking spots back.
Well, what I'm saying is if the wall, here's what I have more of an issue with, is if the wall didn't break, why the fuck don't you like paint that wall? Like,
or why don't you just make it like open so that if it doesn't work, you just like go straight and then you stop. There's like your bumper at the end.
Yeah.
I don't fucking get this movie at all.
Yeah, I will say we'll get to how I feel about this movie, but the fucking science of this time travel.
So here we go. If you're going to give, I know I'm very picky about stuff like this, but if you're going to give me a sci-fi movie with time travel, that time travel has to make some sort of sense.
I agree. I actually,
and it has to follow the same rules every time.
I do, Lloyd. I do give you shit sometimes because I think sometimes you get a little in your head, but this movie is 150% egregious. It's ridiculous. It's out of control.
It is.
So we go back, and so essentially Ron Silver's character, Ron Silver, he says, I'll head up this thing. Fine. Right. He's into it. Now we meet Max Walker. Max Walker is a cop, and he's hanging out in the mall with his wife. They have a little bit of like weird discussion. He stops a robbery. He does a fucking Van Damme like kick into a guy's face. Although he doesn't kick him, he lifts his foot up and tells him to read between the lines.
I know. How does somebody who's like skating at least like 15 miles an hour just stop?
Yeah,
just stop.
He's the best purse snatching skateboard or rollerblade rider ever. So they have this nice day at the mall, and what she doesn't tell him is that she's pregnant. And what he doesn't tell her, well, he kind of says to her, is that he has this new job. Yeah. That's a possibility. What he doesn't tell her is that he works for Matuzak, who we met in that congressional scene, who they said they were going to put in charge of the TEC.
That's right.
It's a time travel job. So it's like they have this whole couple of secrets. But you know what? You know what you do when you're at the mall and you have secrets with each other? You go back to your gigantic fucking house and you just fuck each other's brains out.
Massive Victorian house. I don't know how he gets on his salary.
Master, I've seen this movie multiple times. Until this last time, until the other night when I watched it for the show, had I ever said to myself,
you never realized?
They're the only ones living in this
they're 2 people.
This Victorian fucking
6,000 square foot house.
It's not a mansion, right? But what would you consider that? Like that's a big fucking house.
It's it's probably bigger than Stephen King's house in Bangor, Maine.
As far as we know, he doesn't it's not like he gets this house after he's a TEC cop. You could imagine time travel cop makes a lot of money. He's a beat cop when they're already established in this house in 1994. Yeah. And as far as we know, she's pregnant. That's all she does for a living, and she's pregnant.
She gets pregnant.
We don't know what she's doing for a living. I'm sure she has a job, but like, holy fuck, this house. So they go back. They have an afternoon of lovemaking, and she's going to tell him she's pregnant, but she doesn't. And he goes to leave for work, and they get accosted. Right? What happens, Master?
Man, oh man. So he gets the call right when she goes, "I have to tell you something." Ring, ring, ring. And he answers it, and whatever she had to tell him, which I think anybody watching this movie, even for the first time, knows exactly what she has to tell him,
right? Because
it's pretty obvious when you're doing that, and your wife says, "I have to tell you something." Anyway, he leaves, and she's okay with him leaving. And as soon as he gets out the front door, bam! He just gets it right in the face. Gets knocked out, gets beat up, kicked around, and then shot twice. So they leave him for dead, but we find out later he's got a bulletproof vest on.
He does the thing that everybody in every movie ever who's been shot, everybody in a movie that's wearing a bulletproof vest who's been shot has that scene where they wake up and then they rip their shirt open to show us.
Let's just show the audience, because maybe they think I'm like a vampire or something.
Yeah. And then we see her on the inside of the house, and she is being accosted, and obviously bad things are happening. He gets up to run inside, and fuck, this house blows the fuck up. It blows the actual fuck up, right?
Yeah,
so
right the fuck up.
Blows up, and that's where we kind of leave.
There's a pretty good lovemaking scene, right? You get a little bit of.
We got.
Let's not gloss over the side boob.
A little for everybody, right? We didn't just get side boob from
That's
her,
right.
which she's an attractive woman, but we got Van Damme, like good-looking guy.
Right.
You know, we got to see his ass pumping a few times.
You don't get the pork and beans, but you get the rest.
No, but you got the buns up and down.
Yeah.
He was. If she wasn't pregnant before, she is now. And if he figured out a way to make a fucking double baby, he did it.
They sure did. He double pumped that.
So now we jump ahead, right?
10 years. Time jump. 2004, right?
2004. We know the time has changed because Van Damme's hair is a little bit longer,
little wavier.
But as we jump forward into 2004, we initially jump into 1929. It's the stock market and the crash, the great crash of 29. And there's a guy who goes into his office, and the world's burning. You know, people are jumping out of their
There's
buildings.
already a guy laying on the floor on the sidewalk.
Right. We've already had a jumper, and they're like, that's the third this week.
That's the third this week.
Guy goes up into his office. He's dressed in in all the typical 20s fashion, shuts the office door, gets out his 1920s paper, and then gets out his fucking 2004 paper.
That's right.
And starts to look at stocks and everything.
Yeah.
And then, just so we know he's from the future, he puts on a Walkman and gets out. It's something we never had here. It's not a cassette or a CD. It's like a file of some sort. He plugs that in, and he's listening to metal or something. And as he's doing this, and as he's figuring out his way to to enrich in his life, all of a sudden inside of the room,
you get the
bubble and the ripple, and Van Damme, aka Max Walker, comes through, and just a bunch of dad jokes at him. He calls security, and security is typical 1920s guy who puts up his dukes like this.
Right.
He says something like, and again, he has to be kind of Irish. He's like, I went 10 rounds with old Jack Johnson. And then Van Damme, although Van Damme might have done the spin kick in this scene, he definitely puts him down. And then he says, I watched Tyson beat Leon Spinks on the TV. Yeah. Like, oh man. So he takes him back. He tells him, I got to take you back.
Yeah, but how do they do that? The guy doesn't want to go back. He's like, look, you can't take me back. If I snitch, he's going to come after my family. He's like, who are you talking about? And then we find out it's the Ron Silver character.
Yeah, Ron Silver McComb.
And so the guy just bolts and he fucking dives out the window just like all the other suckers.
But what does Van Damme do when you dive?
Van Damme goes right after him. He dives too, and is able to snatch him like maybe 6 floors up from the ground. Presses his little button, or I don't know, rubs his finger on the side, and they shoot through a portal. So now this has me thinking. I was a big fan of the game Portal. Did you ever play that?
I've heard of it. I never played it.
Oh, so it's an awesome game where you just move through portals. It's like spatial, and there is a mechanic in the game where you propel yourself. It's really fun. So if you're really high and you want to go straight really far, you can like jump straight down, put a portal in the floor, and then your momentum going down will shoot you out of another portal straight across, something like that.
Okay.
But nothing like this happens. Like if they're going that fast, when they come through the portal in current time, holy shit, man. They're gonna get plastered against something somewhere.
I have forgotten already. When they get back, does the guy kill himself, or does
no?
something...
So he tells them, he's like, I'm not gonna tell you anything. So they're like, well, we're just gonna have to punish you. Your death. You're gonna get the death penalty.
Right.
So they send him somehow back to the same moment in time.
That's right.
Where they first went through the portal. It made no sense.
Yeah, and this is Van Damme's ex-partner.
Yeah.
So Van Damme...
that whole thing makes no sense. Why would you send someone back in time? Now you're fucking with the timeline again.
Right. You're leaving a body in the timeline that doesn't belong there at all.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Timecop, you're disappointing me. The more I think about you.
So much.
The more I think about you, Timecop, the more you're pissing me off. Well, let's get... So Van Damme now, obviously, he lost his Victorian house. He now has a shitty apartment. He's in his apartment in his boxers, and all of a sudden now he gets fucking accosted, right? This is a great scene. He's fighting off multiple bad guys, But we get one of the greatest moments of Van Damme history here. He's fighting off one of the bad guys. There's water pouring all over the floor.
Yeah, someone knocks over a water cooler.
A water cooler gets knocked over. The bad guy pulls out one of those stun guns with the propellant needles.
They're still attached to the wires.
Probes.
Yeah.
He goes to blast Van Damme, and Van Damme obviously sees the water. So Van Damme does this jumping split, landing on both sides.
Standing? I think he's laying in the water at this point, right? He's like on the ground.
He gets up, but he does the split across his countertop, and then the bad guy falls and gets electrocuted.
It's freaking amazing. The scene is amazing.
It's super amazing. It's Van Damage. Maybe not at its best, but it's like a 3.0 on a 5 scale of Van Damage.
Yeah, the water makes its way to the guy who's actually holding the taser and fucking electrocutes the hell out of himself.
Yeah. So just as that happens, is that immediately when we meet the Gloria Reuben character? She just shows up, and
I think the scene just switches to her like walking in or something like that.
She tells him that she's essentially his new partner, and at one point she was a part of internal affairs. McComb at one point, actually this happened before. This is why he tried to kill him. McComb shows up, the wrong Silver character, to the TEC. Because he's trying to shut it down. He is now, in our current time, he is now a presidential hopeful. He's going to win, right?
Right.
And he doesn't want the TEC to exist anymore because essentially he knows it could undo him because of all the stuff he's done. He brought it along, right? He's the one that made it happen. He used it to his advantage, and now he wants it to be gone. I think with the thought that he could privately still use the equipment.
Yeah, his line is, why not? Why regulate it? We should just decommission it or something like that.
And what is
you can't fucking just decommission time travel though.
Yeah. And I'm forgetting already. What is it that rubs him wrong about the Van Damme character when they meet? Remember they meet in the precinct immediately after Van Damme brings the other guy back from the 20s. Well, Van Damme basically gives him bad vibes and I think says he's looking into stuff he shouldn't be looking into, and that's going to lead back to McComb. So that's why the bad guys show up to Van Damme's apartment. So I apologize. That was important. That was as important as anything in Timecop for people to understand the plot. Uh-huh. So now that he survived this, Van Damme's character Walker knows he's like, it is McComb. He wants me dead. Now the next part is when Van Damme and Gloria Reuben go back in time. Right.
Yeah. So their purpose here. So I'm trying to remember now. What is their purpose of going back at this point?
I did not sleep through this movie, but again, he's going back because he wants to find the wrong Silver character, McComb, in the act of doing something wrong. Right.
They're going back to investigate some kind of ripple.
Right.
That's occurring, and they're going to find the young McComb.
And we find the young
about
McComb,
a computer chip.
Right. The young McComb is a partner of this other guy in some kind of computer chip that is going to be important to time travel.
Yeah.
As he's there and as the other guy is trying to tell him, I got to get out of this. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. The young McComb, Wrong Silver's younger version, is kind of a pussy, right? Like, he's just like he's not there yet.
And they do a pretty good job with the face because he does look pudgier.
He does
than the older version.
He does. Some of his best lines are to himself, like when he's leaving. So future McComb comes back in the scene, and we get a big old action scene with the return box and all this stuff. And before the whole thing ends, when future McComb is talking to past McComb. First thing he tells me, he's like, don't get fucking near me. Like, do not touch me. Yeah. Even though the thing that kills me is he's telling him so importantly not to touch me, yet meanwhile he's still standing a foot away from him.
Yeah, right next to him.
If I knew the rule of time travel was that I couldn't touch my past self, I would stand no less than 20 feet away and shout.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Because if someone sneezes, they move ahead.
Yeah,
Someone trips.
Bumps into you and all shit.
It's all over. But then
no one knows what's going to happen, but they know it's going to be bad.
Right. The other thing I like that he says is, as he's leaving, he says, "Lay off the fucking candy bars, why don't you?"
Right. I would totally say something like that to myself.
I can see that. I can see I go, well, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you eating gravy out of the jar? What is wrong with you, John? I've never eaten gravy out of the jar.
This whole scene. So this whole scene is, it's kind of like the core of the movie, but as the viewer, none of it matters or makes any sense.
Yeah.
Other than you've got two people in the same place, from different times, and there's a double cross.
Yes, the double cross
That's
is
the
who?
only thing that matters in this whole scene.
Who's the double cross, Lloyd?
So Max shows up, and he sees this exchange going on, and he's got his super, automatic pistol with the laser sighting, with a big fat barrel.
Yeah, big barrel on it.
Pretty cool. Pointed right at McComb. He's like, I gotcha. Throw me your return box. Which, why would you do that? But anyway, so he gives him his return box. But he's like, well, how are you gonna, you're way up there. How are you gonna, keep that gun pointed at me? And then all of a sudden, there's Fielding, his new partner, with her gun on him. He's like, oh, okay, you got me. Here's my box. And next thing you know, she double crosses and turns the gun onto Max. I never really understood that whole part of it either. Like, why?
Yeah,
What is she getting out of it? What's the whole point of that?
She's on McComb's payroll, but it's
none
weak.
of that made sense. Yeah, it's
You're
very weak.
Right. It's weak. We get one cool time travel moment, which we've seen in other things too. But during this whole fray, I think something blows up, or younger McComb gets something and he gets cut across the face. And we see it show up on future McComb.
Yeah.
Cool moment. So this kind of all ends. Does Walker go back at this point? Yeah, Walker goes back.
But
what's wrong with the world now, Lloyd?
Yeah, well, what's happened is everybody's been fighting. He's been popping guys left and right. There's no one left. But McComb doesn't. He shoots his Fielding, the girl that double crossed Max.
He shoots her, yeah.
He shoots her. She looks dead. I mean, there's no reason she's not dead. But he ends up. How does he go back? I forget how he goes back.
He ends up. Let's just.
Or does it not really matter how he goes?
It doesn't matter. He just
gets back.
Yeah, because McComb goes back with the box, and then he gets back as well, and that's when he goes back and he ends up in the cart, which makes no sense. The sled.
Yeah, he comes back on the sled somehow.
When he comes back in the sled, though, the name of the place is different. Now he finds out that they're being decommissioned that day. Matuzak, who they keep talking about how they're best friends in the world, doesn't seem to know him more than just working with him.
Now, wasn't that weird too? Because did you get the feeling that they were super best friends before this?
No, the only reason I got it was because he said it at one point. Early on, he's like, me and you, best friends, buddy. It's like,
oh, did he? I must have missed that.
It was like an offline of dialogue.
What a stupid line to say to let people know.
but we have to have all the little things like that prove the ripple effect. Like when he comes back, the Richie character who looks like he should play guitar in the Allman Brothers. When he comes back now, it's like a yuppie. He's got his hair in a ponytail.
Amy, what you won't do?
He's the fucking pure Prairie League. Yeah, Now he's Gordon Gekko from Wall Street, and so this is how we know time has changed.
But then he keeps. It's funny though. Matuzak, he's funny in these scenes. He's like, "We were friends, you and me, really?" And then Van Damme says, "Every time I went, I can't do his accent at all. Every time I went to your house, she made goulash, but it was too salty, and it was that salty goulash comment that made him say, "Oh yeah, he is my best friend, apparently."
And I mean, honestly, let's be honest. If you work for a time travel commission, wouldn't you always be thinking
every day must be fucked up?
That's what I'm saying. Is like, so when something like this happens, it would almost fuck with your head because you're like, boy, there's a good chance this guy was my best friend in an alternate timeline that has now disappeared somehow. Van Damme then decides that the key to proving that McComb has altered the timeline is going back and getting Gloria Rubin's character, who he's convinced is still alive in the past.
Yeah.
I don't
why
get
he thinks she's alive makes no sense.
So he figures out where she would be and he time travels back to 94 again, right?
Yes.
And he finds her essentially.
This time he ends up in front of a truck. when the two of them came across, they ended up plooping right into the middle of a lake. Like,
yep.
And this time he's in the middle of a highway in front of a Mack truck.
This movie's 30 years old at this point, almost 29 years old. I remember I saw this in the theaters, but I remember when the trailer came out, I remember two scenes from the trailer immensely.
Yeah.
One of them was the Civil War guys and the guy pulling the machine guns out, because that really solidifies Timecop, right?
Yeah, right.
And the other one was I think the trailer ended with him jumping in and then getting under the truck.
Yeah.
Dodging, he gets under an 18-wheeler. So he goes, he finds her. She's a Jane Doe, and she's immediately apologetic. Like, she's not like, why did you even do this? How much money was this for?
I know.
So where does this even lead? How does this help him at all?
I don't know. The only thing it gets to is, well, he wants her to testify against McComb so that they can, get him and stop him from doing what he's doing. I mean, I won't totally get into it, but all this time travel stuff, it changes. So once you've gone back and changed something, the future has changed, and your motivation to ever go back in the first place is gone.
Right.
Because it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
That's why time travel doesn't fucking work to make sense of these movies.
It seems to me that this whole him going back to 94 thing was just an excuse for him to go back and stop his wife's death, because that's what the last act.
And that's exactly what it is. Because in what universe is he going to go into some cooler looking for this Jane Doe's blood sample and find his wife's blood sample right next to it that wraps around and says, "Oh, she's pregnant."
Yeah. So then he goes. So then now this is Future Walker with longer hair. Mm-hmm. He goes to the mall, and
so he comes back. Wait a minute. This is in the same time period.
This is the same, right?
Yeah, it's the same time period when he's with Fielding.
Right, because she dies, right? Did she die or someone kills her?
Well,
right?
the goons come and kill her, and it looks like he discovers her, but it looks like he's the one who's killed her. So now he's running.
They're like, "Get that man! Get that Belgian, fucking Shotokan expert." So he runs. He ends up at the mall.
He gets to the mall.
He stops at a Hot Topic. He gets a pretty rad My Chemical Romance shirt.
He does. It's pretty sweet.
The Black
He sings
Parade.
a little bit of the Black Parade.
Yeah. And then
we realize that we're in the same scene that started, not the movie, but they started the whole
same day,
same scene. And so he, as his older self, 10 years older than the one that we saw earlier, runs into her, finds her, moments before his younger version is going to find her, and explain some stuff to her. So the first thing that happens, she looks at him, and what does she say?
I don't remember.
She said, "Who are you?"
Oh, right. You're right.
Who are you?
You're right.
He's your fucking husband.
You're right. I understand.
10 years is going to make you not recognize your husband?
And the thing is because it's a movie 10 years without any kind of makeup. The only difference is his hair is slightly longer.
That's it.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right. She does. She says, "Who are you?" I remember thinking to myself, "Give me a fucking break. Who are you?" It's Max. It's your husband. So he tells her, "Okay, I know you're pregnant. You've got to tell him."
Yep.
The reason I'm here is that job that I was telling you about, time travel, and bad shit's gonna happen. So we gotta kind of get this going. So
he also takes care of that roller skating dude who stole the lady's purse,
right?
Before he had the chance to steal the lady's purse.
Do you know what I call that? That's pre-crime right there. That ties into our Minority Report episode. I thought about that. I thought because the guy on the rollerblades is going by and he pushes him into a display.
But here's where the problem is with that. Moments later, his younger self is going to meet his wife and then stop that guy from rollerblading.
Well, not anymore. He's not.
Yeah, but we've already seen it happen.
Oh, so you're right. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Yeah, because all the stuff that happens at the end of this affects the beginning, right?
Yeah, it's so poorly written.
Yeah. So
but, you're not supposed to care about that.
So everything ends up back at the house. The goons, everybody ends up back at the house, and essentially, future Van Damme is hiding in the house from past Van Damme, and he's giving her pointers. He's probably like when they're downstairs right before they're about to make love. He's probably like, He really likes it when you lick the head of his cock. When you go in circles and then counterclockwise, and then when you stick your tongue in his dick hole.
Yes.
He likes that so much.
He likes the perineum and stick your finger up his ass.
Yes, you never have tried it, but trust me, a thumb 3/4 of the way in, nothing wrong with that. He will not.
That doesn't make me gay.
I'm not gay. I am not gay.
I'm not gay. But I like a little thumb there.
In about another 10 years, it'll be common. They'll call it pegging. It'll be okay. We got to get past the stigma. So everything starts to happen again from the beginning. Young Walker goes to leave. He gets accosted, but now we got
old Walker.
Of old future Walker,
right,
is helping fight off these guys. One of the goons is like this dude with a mohawk and like his pants tucked into his boots that like throughout the whole movie, I'm thinking to myself, there's no way this guy could ever get the jump on Van Damme. No. And he keeps getting the jump on Van Damme. So there's a lot of actiony stuff going on. At one point, it's raining heavily out. The Mia Sara character, she climbs to the top of this Victorian mansion.
Very tip.
Very like the A-frame roofs that are very like narrow. She gets to the tip of it, and then
she's holding on to an antenna.
She's holding to an antenna. She's getting chased by bad guys. Young Walker is also climbing. There's fighting going on, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, all kinds of action.
And then we get
in the dark. It's so fucking dark. The last 20 minutes, I didn't know who was who.
I actually wanted to credit you on saying that because I forgot to say that and I didn't write it in my notes. This is the last 20 minutes of this movie is some of the hardest to discern.
Yeah.
Dark scenes since Alien vs. Predator Requiem. If you've never
saw that,
we'll do it this year on the show because I can't believe a major motion picture could be that dark.
Right.
It's impossible to discern what's happening. This movie does it for about 15 minutes.
Yep.
There's a scene where they end up in the basement. I couldn't tell what the fuck's going on.
Nothing.
And the lighting, terrible.
Terrible.
You
got to show people. I don't know if it's on purpose because, the action wasn't that well choreographed or I don't know, but you've got to fucking show people. It's so frustrating to see a movie that's so dark that you can't see what's happening.
Agreed. I totally agree. The last 15 minutes of this movie was very frustrating, especially when it's the last 15 minutes of a Van Damme action movie. I mean, yes, this is a science fiction action movie. It's not like, Kickboxer or anything, but like you can't tell what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
You can't tell what the fuck's going on. So all this stuff is going on, and then Future McComb shows back up. He gets a hold of Mia Sara's character, and he's got a bomb, and he tells him, "I'm going to kill us all." Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to kill us all. And my young version already has all the instructions on what to do, and he's going to become president. He's going to become me,
right.
But I'll die here. It doesn't matter.
Right. It doesn't matter if I die here because I'm still over there.
I'm still there.
But young version.
but who shows up all of a sudden?
Guess who just walks around the corner at that point? Young version.
Wrong Silver.
Right, wrong Silver.
He shows up.
If the house blows, they all blow.
And again,
Young.
I actually really like Ron Silver. Like, what the fuck are you doing here? And then Van Damme, because the older Van Damme character is like, I invited him. I pretended to be somebody else. so he shows up, and now
I promised him a thumb up the ass.
I promised to peg him in my Victorian mansion.
You don't know what that is yet, but you will.
There should have been a line with Wrong Silver where he just says, "How the fuck do you afford this house on a cop's salary?"
Right, I wish they would have at least alluded to that somehow.
This is I'm going to be president next week, and this is nicer than where I live. So this is all happening, and he sets the bomb, and just as everything is about to go down, earlier in the movie, the Silver character says to Van Damme's character that like you haven't figured it out yet with someone who could do kicks like you. You should have gone into another profession. You should have gone on Broadway.
Right.
Well, that's where we get Van Damme using his, his final Van Damme, I guess you can say dad joke line. Let me find it here. I want to read it.
I didn't write it down.
As this is ending, he ends up kicking Wrong Silver past into Wrong Silver future.
Right.
And he says, "I'm still kicking. I must be on Broadway." And
so bad.
He kicks the two Silvers together, and then essentially, as I mentioned earlier, Lloyd, am I correct? They just become the worst CGI of all time.
It's the worst CGI because young Silver gets kicked into old Silver, and he spins around 180 degrees, so they're now like spooning. Like back to front. And somehow old Silver's hand goes right through young Silver.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate shunting.
Yeah, they shunt for sure.
If you ever saw the movie Society, these two shunt spectacularly.
Yeah.
But it's horribly as well. But it's as good as far as shunting goes. They converge.
They converge into what looks like a blood drop or a stomach.
It's weirdly colored and shaded, and it looks super fake.
And then it just dissolves into the floor and leaves a stain.
Right. So when two bodies can't occupy the same space, so neither one wins, and they both dissolve. And somehow that space is, I don't know, fills in. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows what the fuck happened there? It kind of looks like the terrible final effect of in Blade, in the original Blade, the Blood God. If you ever saw that deleted scene, it's a terrible effect. But in Blade, they cut it out because they went, "This is terrible."
No, it's terrible.
Yeah,
this scene, it doesn't belong in this movie at all. They should have just come up with some other way instead of spending crappy CGI money and coming up with this. I don't know what they could have done. It could have been one could have just killed the other. I don't know.
Turn to stone.
It's so fucking stupid.
Like literally, turn to stone. That's
what they chose was just stupid. It was like a fifth grader wrote it.
They chose poorly.
They chose poorly.
So that's pretty much it. The house still blows up, but the house.
Speaking of which, the house already blew up. So why is it even there this time?
Well, that's a whole nother thing. So here's something I'm just failing to remember. What happens to future Walker? Right? Because we find out that obviously she survives, which she shouldn't have, right. And young Walker and her are now going to be a family and have a baby. Do they show what happens to future Walker?
So didn't he lay Melissa? So no, he just took his wife and put him near the younger version of himself.
Right, but that means
and then he just sort of disappeared.
Does he disappear, or you mean
disappeared? No, he leaves the scene. He doesn't disappear like the Blob disappeared, but
all right,
he just leaves the scene.
If this is your first episode of The Pint, I apologize that you might be listening going, did these guys watch this movie? We did, but
it's so fucking confusing.
It's confusing.
And it doesn't make sense anyway. So
it just starts to hemorrhage out of your head. This is the kind of movie that we would have had to really be sharp on.
Oh, you know what?
Recorded on the same day.
I think what happens was what year is this? So this is another word.
04.
He returns to his timeline. I think he returns to his own timeline and sets everything straight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, yeah, because this is 94, so...
But one of the major rules is you can't return to the future.
Because it hasn't happened yet. But wait.
Because but this is what they're saying. This is what they're saying he did, so...
Well, maybe you can't return to any point further than where you came from, right? So technically that's not the future because he's gone to the past from 2004. So 2004 is technically like a start point, not the future, but he can't go to 2005.
All right. Yeah. All right. So technically we'll accept that.
All right. We're going to accept that.
We're accepting that.
Master, let's talk about the box office of this film.
Show me the money.
Just looking good, but I think I'm taking too long. Back to the spot for a Glock. I took a loss over frost, but still got a knock.
Money! So Timecop had a budget of $28 million. $28 million in 1994. So not too shabby for 94. Box office opening weekend, 12 million. That's almost half of, a little less than half of what they put into it already.
This is certainly at the tail end of the Van Damme Hollywood machine, right? Yeah. I think by 96 he wasn't really doing much theatrically as much as cheaper video stuff. So this is one of the last bigger Hollywood Van Damme films.
So what I will say is this is his highest grossing film, or either the first or second, but I think it was the top highest grossing film. So like I said, the weekend was 12 million. Domestic box office on the year was 44.8. International was 57. So I had a total worldwide of 102 about, which is pretty $100 million for 1994 is good. That's a great, made its money back.
They have
times 3.5.
They eventually made a television show, which apparently had nothing to do with Walker. It was just the Time Cop premise.
Yeah,
I've never seen it, but our buddy Patrick Flanagan, good friend, Pint Insider, he mentioned it when I said we were doing this. He said, you got to mention the underrated. He said underrated, I believe.
Underrated, huh?
So Patrick,
I didn't really write too many notes about that. So that weekend, September 16th weekend.
Yes.
We had some movies. Time Cop was the number one movie that weekend at 12 million. At number 5, we had The Mask in its 8th week. Number 4, Natural Born Killers. What do you think of that movie?
I love Natural Born Killers.
It's a good movie, right?
I haven't seen it in many, many years, but when that was out in the theaters, I saw it probably 4 or 5 times. Me
Mickey
and my friends.
Mallory. Yeah, I used to have the soundtrack.
Yeah, maybe let's put that on the list for this year. I haven't seen it in so long that I would like, I would like to see it. As weird as this sounds, as an adult, I watched that a lot in my 20s, and not maybe once in 15 years plus.
Who directed that? I know it was written by Tarantino.
That was Oliver Stone.
Stone, that's right. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Number 3, Clear and Present Danger. Number 2, Forrest Gump. Yeah. Number 1, Time Cop. On the year 1994. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. Box Office Mojo.
Yep.
Sometimes they're fucked up.
Okay.
Because there is nowhere. I went to the worldwide, and it says in there 101 million or something. But when you go to the list, it's listed at 44 million. So it's only showing the domestic.
Oh, okay.
So they do fuck up now and then on some of the movies. So I go to another one called The Numbers. And then, usually they give me some good information. But anyway, that year, 94, number 10, Pulp Fiction, 107. Number 9, The Mask. Number 8, Speed. Number 7, Clear and Present Danger. 6, Dumb and Dumber. Number 5, The Flintstones. Did you ever see that?
In the theaters once, and that was it. Yep.
Number 4, The Santa Claus. 3, True Lies. Fucking great movie, right?
Yep.
Number 2, The Lion King. Another good movie. And number 1, of course, Run, Forrest, Run.
Yeah, Forrest Gump.
So I will give you a couple movies, and you tell me what came in. So Time Cop, Beverly Hills Cop 3, and Shawshank Redemption.
How did those come in?
Yeah. Well, how do you think those 3 rank?
I would say Beverly Hills Cop 3 did the most, Time Cop did the second most, and Shawshank was a dud in the theaters. I would say that was the least.
Yeah, it was a dud. It was the least, but Time Cop came in above Beverly Hills Cop.
I know Beverly Hills Cop 3 is the dud of those movies, but I would have thought just based on even 1994 Eddie Murphy. But I guess 1994 Van Damme might have had it over him at that point. So, okay.
Yeah, so here's my note that I said I wasn't sure if I had. It is his highest grossing film as a lead actor, and his second film to break the 100 million worldwide.
Okay.
And basically it's regarded as like one of his best films.
I can see why it's his highest grossing, because it's the furthest
entertaining.
Reaching. It's entertaining. It's the furthest reaching. It's a science fiction movie. It's not like him in a kickboxing tournament, or him in a in some other tournament, or it's not a martial arts only movie.
Right.
It
reaches further than that.
Right. It reaches further. All right, let's rate this thing.
Yeah.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
Yeah, one thing you want to know, that virtual reality nude scene?
Yeah.
You know what that was supposed to be?
Yes, I read it was supposed to be something else, and they had a dancer. Yeah, tell me what it was. I read it, but I don't remember.
So it was supposed to be a nature documentary scene about beavers.
Right.
But instead we got a different kind of beaver.
Yeah, we got
but what happened was the film team got drunk on the evening and ended up in a strip club and realized they had missed the bus to the nature reserve, and ended up getting one of the dancers they met in the club and filmed her for that scene.
Yeah, she got her SAG ticket, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Her SAG credit, I guess.
All right. So, Jesus, it's sci-fi, it's action. It's nowhere near like as entertaining as a Terminator. But if you're willing to, and I'm not always willing to do this, but if you're willing to suspend your disbelief, like in rational thought, Like I picked this movie apart, and I could go so much deeper about the fucking time travel garbage. But if you do that, it gives you some sort of like maybe limited kind of like action like reward like for watching it. I think you have to be a Van Damme fan to really like this. A lot of the stuff looks cheap. Remember that car?
Oh yeah,
futuristic car. What the fuck
Yeah.
was? What are they thinking? They got that totally wrong as far as
Yeah.
futuristic
it's
cars.
fucking terrible. Yeah,
Yeah. The effects were not good. The blob was horrible. That effect was kind of okay. The ripple, like when you leave time and come back in time.
I like that. I like that kind of like
It
that.
was okay, but
That bouncy sound, that sound, like
Yeah.
when they come in. Yeah,
yeah. So, but I think what this needed was better humor, because, like you said, a lot of the lines they just don't work.
yeah, no,
They don't work. They're just poorly written. It's like a fifth grader wrote them. And it needed more action, more Van Damme. I know. I'm not a fan, but I know that this movie needs more Van Damme.
yeah.
in order
I'll
to
I'll
be
agree
good.
with you. I'll agree
Yeah.
with you 100% that this is very light on the Van damage meter. Like, there's not a lot of.
Right.
If you're looking for those high spinning kicks, if you're looking for like really good martial arts fights, they're not in this movie at all. And
Yep.
you know what? Maybe at that point he was trying to branch out and not just be that guy. I don't know if that's the case. Good for him. But in the next 3 weeks, at least 2 of them, you're going to get more of that for sure.
I'll get okay. All right. So all in all, I'm gonna say this movie's entertaining. I can't. Sometimes we give movies low score, but we say it's a solid
Yeah.
2.5. But I can't even say that it's a solid. But I'm not gonna give it a horrible score. But I can't even get it up to 2.5. I'm gonna give it a 2.25.
I'm going to agree with you. 2.25.
Yeah.
All the reasons you just said. It's if it's not supposed to be a martial artsy Van Damme film, then it should be a really good sci-fi like actioner, and it's not. This movie reminds me very much of a film we did a couple months ago at this point with Larry, Runaway, where
Runaway.
I've seen it so many times, I've seen it enough that I'm amused by it to a point, but I'm also starting to realize that every time I see Timecop, it's wearing a little bit the sheen's coming off of it. There are no real big action beats. The time travel mechanics are fucking so bad, so bad in this movie that I want whoever the person in charge of like that whole thing, whoever they said when they wrote the story said, your whole thing is I want you to know the ins and outs of this science and how it works. And I want everybody to understand it out there. They take off in a sled. They drop in front of trucks. How do they get back?
Sometimes they come back in a sled, sometimes through a ripple. I don't know.
Yeah. It's 2.25 from both of us.
All right.
That's very fair.
So
That's
I would
very
like
fair.
to say something. Time travel movies, for me anyway, they're really touch and go. Like they're very tricky. Back to the Future does it well. There's time loop movies, like that's a different genre, I think. In my book, time loop movies are different than time travel. But if you want to see a time travel movie that you can watch and think in your brain, damn, I think this actually makes sense.
I know what you're going to say.
It's called Primer.
Primer.
Okay.
Primer.
It's called
hurts my
Primer,
head.
people. It's not even an hour and a half long. You used to be able to watch it on Netflix. I doubt it's there anymore. Listen to what I'm saying. Go Google Primer and watch it.
On the Primer Wikipedia page, I don't know if it was the filmmakers or somebody drew a diagram of how the time travel works in it.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole thing with somebody like spending time in a box.
Yep.
And then who comes out of the box at one point, and then where the other version of this person is. And this movie will hurt your head.
So you agree?
It'll hurt your head in the way that you go, holy fuck, I think that's how time travel would work.
Yeah. I watched that movie and that's exactly how I felt. I'm like, damn, that might actually be the key. I mean, that might be it. written
and directed by a guy named Shane Carruth, and very, very cool movie. And again, you're right. It's like an hour and 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
It's barely a feature, but yeah, check Primer out. All right. Before Manster tells everybody where you can find us, something a little bit new I want to do on the show is give a little credit to our Pint Insider. So the Pint, a pop culture podcast, is a co-production between The Pint, which is Lloyd and myself, and our insiders. Patreon/The Pint. You're putting some money in and helping us get to where we got to get to put this thing out. It helps greatly. So I want to weekly, or at least as much as I can remember to, shout you guys out. And this week I'm going to shout out insider Amanda Kennedy. Amanda just celebrated a birthday.
All right, Amanda.
Happy birthday, Amanda. Amanda is our good friend Melissa Willette's twin sister.
Okay.
And I've mentioned this before on the show once before, I think. They have the coolest birthday thing going on ever. They're identical twins. Melissa was born prior to midnight, and Amanda was born post midnight. So they are born on different days.
Oh, wow. I've never heard of that.
Very cool.
First time.
Amanda follows us on Instagram. I chat with her every once in a while. She is in animal healthcare, which is fucking super noble, and that's incredible to me. So, Amanda, thank you so much for your patronage. And we love you.
Thank you, Amanda. We love it.
Put that out there. All right, Manster, where can everybody find us?
Everywhere. Just Google us. Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, any of those things. Alexa will even tell you about us.
Yep.
We got a YouTube channel. You can go check that out. Facebook and YouTube. We're at The Pint, a pop culture podcast. Instagram and Twitter at The Pint Podcast. And like John said, the insider is patreon.com/The Pint.
Van Dammeuary continues next week. Until then, Manster, say it.
Happy New Year, folks. See ya.
It's over, Johnny. It's over! Nothing is over! Nothing! You just don't turn it off!